Hi guys, welcome to another KamicarzCreations video. Sitting in behind the little Beetle, little 7071 model Beetle 1500cc, and I'm just about to change the carby. So bought this a while back and it's been running beautifully, but the whole engine at some time has been painted. Everything's been just painted with black. And the other day I daily ran the little Beetle into my work, and when I got out I could just smell fuel, which isn't a good thing with any Volksies, as you know. Had a look in there and a lot of that black paint had started peeling, and I could smell the fuel and I could see a fair bit of wetness in there, and thought I have a few issues and I don't want the thing to go up in flames. So I parked it. I ended up running it back home. It seemed fine, started it, ran quite well, ran it home, had a look, didn't have too much trouble. But just a little while ago, I've received the carby last week, and just a little while ago I thought I'll fire it up and run it down to the shed and get prepared to do this carby job on it, and got out and could smell fuel. And when I had a look, sure enough, very wet. Seems to be on initial startup. And it doesn't seem to be necessarily the carby, although the carby is quite old and it'd be good to put a new one on there. But it seemed to be more around the fuel pump area and the lines onto the fuel pump. So I'll give the whole thing a good overhaul, and new fuel lines. Eventually I'd like to take it away from the mechanical fuel pump at the engine and put an electronic one in and get it away from the engine. But I haven't planned to do that at this stage. So I've just taken the air cleaner off, and I've bought a SCAT air cleaner for the new carby. I don't know whether that'll be a good thing or a bad thing, but I'll be interested to see your opinions out there. I'll know probably soon enough on how it runs with the new carby and the SCAT air cleaner, but I'll show you those parts, and I'll get into the process of putting this all together. So all I've done at this stage is knock the old air cleaner off. There was only really one line running to the air cleaner, and that seemed to be an oil overflow line running off the bottom of this. Somewhere, yep, just in here you can see that oil line running down, and I noticed that the air cleaner did have a little bit of oil in it, and that runs back down into near the oil filler. So I'll have to have a look at that. But here is the little SCAT air cleaner. Now, I'm not 100% sure. I know changing the dynamics of the way the thing breathes, or any engine breathes, can be an issue on the tune and the jetting size, but we'll see how it goes. I've always got the option to put the other one back on if I have any issues. And in the bottom of this one, I noticed there are a couple of little areas there where you can run some lines back, like that original oil line. Over here I have the U-Butte brand new carby. It's an original. It's not quite the same. A few different connection points, but basically this is the original carby for the engine. So I'm going to fit that up. The good thing about putting a brand new carby on is all the linkages are good, no play. I've got a new gasket for where it joins onto the manifold, and just clean up a few things with running this new carby. So here we are inside the engine bay. As you can see, other than the distributor, I suppose, everything has had a black coat of paint. And over time I want to tidy this engine up and make the engine bay look a little bit nicer. Maybe a new, the distributor's okay, but maybe a new coil. I'd like to get some of the tin work painted and tidied up. But putting this new carby on here should be good. You can notice this one's all pretty much painted black. And down here is my original fuel pump. And you can see a lot of the paintwork has gone down the bottom, right down into here, and a lot of that is due to fuel running down there. So this is the inlet line from the fuel tank. to the mechanical pump and the outlet line running up to the carby. And it seemed to be around this area, and you can see a fair bit of the paintwork is gone, and it was very wet in here when I ran it into the shed. So it could be mainly in that fuel line, but I'm going to put all new fuel lines on it, all new hose clamps, new carb, new air cleaner, and then hopefully fire it up and see how she runs. So out with the old, ugly, dirty looking thing, even though it was working okay, and in with the new beautiful looking thing. Hopefully it's jetted the same and set up right. Up in the engine bay, obviously this is a 1500, and I'm learning with these little V-dubs, but the 13s and 15s were basically a single port motor, and that's where my carby sits on. I did have an issue, and I've got a couple of other bugs out there, and I've noticed this on them as well, trying to undo the little clamping screw to get that off and release the cable. She just snapped instantly, so I'm going to have to repair that to get that off. That's no biggie, I can do that. And I'll do that before I fit the carby back on, so I've got a bit of room to work. Looks better already. I've just set the new one on the manifold. Haven't done much else other than that at this stage. But really happy again, as long as she all tunes in okay. If not, I might have to phone a friend. Again, just doing a little bit of trial fit up here. I really like the old SCAT air cleaner. Gives me a lot more room. It looks good, but again, it's got to perform. And I'll have to have a look at putting that oil line in. There's not a lot of room to run that oil line. That's this oil line here that runs back down into the oil filler area. Anyway, we'll sort it out as we go. It's daytime again. I started this last night. Got it pulled apart. Had an issue with the little unit in here. There's a little sort of grommet thing that screws onto the main cable that I couldn't get out, but I fixed that this morning. And I've just fastened the carby down onto the manifold. So one of the studs came out. So I've Loctited both the studs back in, put a new gasket on there, used a little bit of Permatex as a sealant, and ran a couple of new spring washers on the bottom of the nuts. I took the dizzy cap off to make it easier to get in and tighten that up, but starting to make progress on her. Just going to hook up all of the fuel lines, the little electrical components, and the cable, and then she should be ready to give a go at fire her up. So far so good. Carby's on, bolted down, the accelerator cable's all hooked up with that new little grommet to lock it off. Hooked up the wires, and I just got to put the air cleaner on and see if she fires up. I think down here you can see an electrical wire going to it. I think this is the fuel cutoff valve, and you've got a solenoid up here. Now on the old carby, both of those were on the same side over here. So it was a pretty simple fix for me. I had two connections up here. So I just took the whole wire off. It comes off, I think, the positive down on the coil. And so I put the two ends down there, plugged into the coil, plugged into the cutoff valve, and ran the wire around to the solenoid. But she looks a lot nicer than that daggy old carburetor on there, even though that worked. With the fuel lines, I think the biggest part of my leaking was down here, but I also had some between the flange gasket. And I thought, if I'm going to do it, I might as well just put a carby on there for a couple $100, put a new carby on there. and all good. So I cut the ends off these fuel lines, which were very old and squashed and hardened. So I just cut, you know, half an inch off either end of them. They became nice and soft, and used the same hose clamps and screwed her all back on. So we'll see how she fires up. So there we go, guys, job done. That's a standard 3031 picked, I think they're known as. It'd be an aftermarket reproduced carburetor. I changed over from the original air cleaner, which is quite big and bulky, and went for the SCAT. Not sure whether that's a good decision yet. Wait and see, and I've still got to take her for a drive. But she seems to be starting and running fine, which it was before. It was just a bit of a worry about some of those fuel leaks in there, which I seem to have nipped in the bud, which is a good thing. So anyway, guys, that's fitting the carby up to the little Beetle Norman, and all looks good so far. So thanks for watching.